part of the Boundless Audio Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Artist Pivot Podcast. I am your host, Ayana Major Bey, and I happen to be an actor, voiceover artist, mentor, and world traveler. This is a bi-weekly show featuring conversations about pivots and life lessons from the perspective of artists, those who work in and around the arts, and arts educators. Everyone possesses the ability to pivot. You just have to be reminded sometimes, and that is what I am here to do. To stay up to date and in the know about merchandise, exclusive content, and how to support the show, please subscribe to the newsletter at ayanabey.com/podcast. That's AYANABEY.com/podcast. And there is a link in the show notes. We'll get to this week's episode after a word from our sponsors. I have found that therapy is a tool to use to improve your life in one of the healthiest ways. For those who are working on their mental health and well-being, on a journey of facing your fears, or trying therapy for the first time, our show sponsor BetterHelp is here to help you. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. Join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/artistpivot. That's betterhelp.com/artistpivot. All right, y'all. So today on the podcast, I am excited to say that joining me is Miss Roslyn Seale. She is a Brooklyn, New York native. Stand up, Brooklyn. I'm from Jersey, but Brooklyn stand up. Hey! She has performed on tour in regional theaters all over the country, and you can see her on television, commercials, print campaigns, and performing improv and sketch comedy on stages throughout NYC. Roslyn, welcome!
Hello! Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. I'm so excited for you to be here. So let me start with my favorite question.
Okay.
If I texted you right now and said, Roslyn, how are you? How's your day going? How you feeling? What's going on? But you could only respond in emojis only. What would you text me?
It could be a series of emojis?
Oh, yes. It could be a whole
Okay.
soliloquy of emojis.
Okay. It would be a heart, a smiley face, probably a laughing so much I'm crying. Yeah, those are pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for your imaginary text. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. That's my favorite question because people are like, what? I'm like, yes, I would like you to text me your imaginary emojis. So thank you. And y'all, I've known Roslyn for a while now.
Mhm.
Like,
I think we
long
met
time.
in like 2009. It's been a long time.
I believe so. I
Yeah.
believe so. On the audition circuit.
Yes, the non-union audition circuit.
Oh, girl. Oh, girl. Oh, those were the days.
Mhm,
But were they?
mhm. No, I mean, we were just hungry though, because I look back at that
Yeah.
time and I'm like, we used to get up early all the time. I mean, we weren't like
Mhm.
crazy early. We weren't like,
Mhm.
those crazy people that get burned out, but
Yeah.
early going to call, trying to crash calls. But I remember
Mhm.
like meeting up for the happy hours after, like going to Blockheads when it was still there, or Mother
Yes.
Burger, and that was always a vibe. It was like, I'm going to see
Mhm.
friends today. I'm going to make new friends. Like I've met so many people that I became very good friends with just through auditions.
Yes. That bingo. You hit the nail on the head. That's it. Like we got up and we grinded, but then also like my favorite part was going to happy hour afterwards.
Yes.
And like talking with my friends, meeting new friends. Like you said, it was a vibe. Like it was a vibe. I'm glad I did it then. I don't know if, here's the thing, because of the pandemic, I think it's a different situation now. So I can't even say I would do it again because it's a completely different, like, just literal situation now. Like everything is a self-tape.
Yep.
And like we're also older. We were in our 20s. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing that again in my 30s. I'm not doing that. Mm-mm.
Yeah. No, I mean, at this point, I barely even go to EPAs. Like I go to ones where I'm like, oh, I got an appointment. Yeah, sure, I'll walk down there. But I'm not, no, people are like fighting tooth and nail for some of these big theaters. I'm like, first of all, half those roles, actually, most of those roles are already cast because when they announced their season, they had them cast. They have their Broadway actors, they have whatever. So you're really just going up for ensemble, and we're really talking about dance ensemble. So unless you're a dancer, you're doing a lot of effort for something that's not really going to happen.
Yes. And we'll get into that. Because that's part of your pivot as well.
Yes.
So take me back to before we even met. So we met in 2009 on the audition circuit, grinding and doing the things we had to do back then. But like, how did you even get there? Like, where did your artistic journey start?
Well, definitely started in Brooklyn. I took piano lessons from like 3rd grade on and dance, I think from 4th grade on, and just doing it, something fun to do. Went to my junior high school and they had an excellent theater program. And I was in the drama dance program. So we'd have one period a day where we're dancing or doing like acting exercises. I was nervous about the acting stuff because back then I still stuttered a little bit. So that was very stressful. I was like, I can't do this. But dancing was great. Joined the choir, it was great. Didn't even realize I could sing until I was like 14. Even though I was in the shows, I was always in the ensemble, like did not really think that I was like a singer because my brother, who was a hater, would always be like, you can't sing, shut up. And I'm like, flash forward all these years later, I'm like, wait, fool, you the one that can't sing. Like, what are you talking about? But just completely believed him, thought I couldn't sing. And then I went to a high school in New York that was really well known for their theater program. We did 4 shows a year, 2 plays and 2 musicals. Edward R. Murrow in Brooklyn. And I started doing shows there. And then senior year of high school was first on my radar that you can go to college and major in theater. Like, I was like, you can go to school for musical theater? Like, what? Like, that's insane. But at that point, that was the thing that brought me the most joy. It was like I got to go to rehearsals and I loved it. And I loved the dancing. I love everything coming together and the costumes and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, I'm also quite old. So this was like, 24 years ago, I want to say, when I graduated high school. Yeah, it was 99. And so I went to Syracuse and I got in for musical theater. So I spent a year and a half in that program. And it just was not working out. Like, it's so funny looking back at it, because at the time I think I was in denial about it. But my mom called me one day because I was complaining about a dance teacher who I felt like she was singling me out and all this stuff. And then I started crying because back then when I got angry, it was usually tears. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't really deal with anger. So I just wanted being sad. And she was like, in her like Bajan accent, I don't think you adjusting at all. I don't know what's going on here in this school, And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, it's fine. Because I had friends and I liked everybody, it was great. But, I look back at it, freshman year core, I was oversleeping all the time. Like, and that was one of those things where it was like, your grade would suffer if you didn't show up to core, which I think was like 4 or 5 times a week at like 8:30 in the morning. And I was missing all the time. And I would set 2 alarms. It was like, I just did not want to be there, but I was like in denial about it. And then I was like, well, maybe we'll be better sophomore year, because we're not going to just be doing exercises. We'll be doing scene work or like musical theater performance, whatever. Yeah. And I got there and I was like, I still don't like it. My advisor was the only Black faculty, and he was like actively terrible to me. He's one of those people that's like would be harder on you, because you were Black. But also it was like, if you see I'm not adjusting, you can't be mean to someone who's not adjusting well. That's not a good teaching style. That was not effective.
Right.
And then you're already going in and you're intimidated because half of your classmates or more of them have been the lead in every show they were ever in. They went to theater camp every summer. I was just happy to be in the shows in high school. Like the talent level was so high. I was never the lead in anything, like it just wasn't that kind of situation. So I already felt behind from the get-go. And then all the like the stresses of like some of the teaching styles, and it's just like, it's not working. So I decided to leave the department, and then I went to the Newhouse School at Syracuse. So I got my degree in TV film.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I worked in TV for 5 years in LA. And then I came back. Okay. And then not too long after being back, I was like, I'm feeling this pull. I don't know. Like, I was seeing all these shows, and I kept thinking like, I would love to be up there. And this was in 2008. So this was like the financial crisis. So I had friends who were lawyers. Yeah, I had friends that were lawyers who got laid off. People that had like this quote unquote secure jobs. Yeah. So I was like, I might give this a shot. And I was lucky because, like you, I had a mom that was very supportive. And, I was back at home because I had just been back from LA a few months. So I was living at home with her, and she was like, yeah, give it a shot. Yeah. At least you can say you tried,
That part. At least you can say you tried. So wait, before you continue, I have a question for you. When you were in LA for those years, what were you doing?
Yeah. So I worked initially. So I first came out there. I was the TV Academy. They have an internship program. So I was selected to be for that year for 2003, which was 20 years ago. I was selected to be the programming management intern. So I was working in CBS and drama development. And I worked for a woman who, she was at the time the head of drama development, but then she wound up becoming the head of the network for a number of years, Nina Tassler. And she was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Like, she would have me in all the pitch meetings. So I got to meet so many people, like huge writers, but also like people that we grew up with. Like Robert Townsend came in to pitch one day. LeVar Burton came in to pitch, like just got into this. I got to meet all these people. It was wonderful. But she really wanted me to see the whole process. And then I got a job working at Fox, and I worked in their research department. So ratings and also like focus groups and that sort of thing. And then I started to feel the pull, like I wanted to go back to the more creative side. So programming, which is like reading the scripts and all that sort of thing. So I started working for a TV lit agent, and she represented TV writers and also TV directors. So, basically their whole thing is trying to get their writer staff on a TV show, on the writing staff, and the directors to get picked up for episodic episodes. But also doing lots of reading of scripts. And then she wound up becoming a vice president of current programming at ABC. And when that happened, she took me with her.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, quite a little journey.
So then I worked in current programming, and that was great. Like, I mean, Disney's a wonderful company to work for. ABC was wonderful. We were right on the Disney lot in Burbank. One of the shows I worked on is still on the air, Grey's Anatomy, the never dying Grey's Anatomy. So, it was really fun because I was there when like, it was like the height of like Grey's and Desperate Housewives and Lost, and, getting to read the scripts beforehand, or even getting the network cut beforehand. I'm like, I'm going to watch this. I know what happened, like all that kind of stuff. It was fun.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. So you have that side, that side of the business. And like in my head, I was like, great. When I need to, Roslyn, I need to practice my pitch. Let me practice. Tell me what to fix in my pitch.
Yes. Well, a lot of people cannot pitch. I mean, even people that had wonderful ideas, like their agents, it'd be so funny. Their agents afterwards would be talking to my boss or another VP and be like, he's a terrible pitcher, and it's like, but I hope you consider it, that would happen all the time.
Wow. Yeah. Are there like, I know I'm going off topic, but are there like pitching classes out there for like people to learn how to like pitch?
There probably are at this point. Like, I feel like there's a class for everything. So there probably is.
You're right. There probably is. Probably is.
And also, I'm sure that like, the agent or manager involved, if they're seeing that the pitches are not going well, they'll probably try to find someone to put you together with to help develop a better pitch.
Good.
Yeah.
So with that, okay, so you're like, okay, I feel the pull. I want to go back. Like I'm gonna go to New York. I'm going back. So your mom's great, and it's like, yeah, live with me, try it out. You could say you tried. So we're in what, 2008, 2009. Okay, so start taking me through that little portion of your journey.
Yeah, so that involved doing community theater for a little bit,
Mhm.
just so I could be in a show again and like
Yeah.
get in the process of what that was. Like, okay, let's get my mind sharp again for learning music, and because that's all a muscle as well that had not
Mhm.
been worked. Um, and then also going to auditions. So I think I booked my first job like January of 2009, like this random mini children's store with a lot of
Mhm.
people who are still around in the business. And it was great. I was thrilled. I mean, I'm sure it was like for no money, but I was like, I am an actor. I am
Yeah.
getting a check. We got to
Yes.
stay overnight in a couple of places. I was like, yes, I'm on this like mini tour. It was everything.
Yeah.
Um, and then had a bunch of callbacks for like some of the actual like tours.
Mhm.
But none of those like worked out at the time. And then my first like real regional job was bubbling brown sugar at Broward Stage Door, which was the fall of 2009. And that was
Mhm.
with a ton of people who were just stars. Like they were
Mhm.
I mean, that cast was amazing because
Yeah.
everybody had their moment to shine. Like I feel like everybody had a solo at some
Mhm.
point. It's one of those random shows. Everybody had a solo. The dancing was amazing. Everything was fantastic. And everybody in that cast has like gone on to do like such wonderful things. And
Mhm.
whenever I see them, it's just like it's family, even though I barely ever see them anymore. But that
Yeah.
2 months together, which for me was like a dream come true to have booked a
Mhm.
regional job and getting to hang out in Florida for 2 months and like as it was getting cold.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. And so, like you said, that's something you're gonna hold forever. And
Yes.
with that, moving into, the how do I wanna phrase it? Like, the constant grind of
Mhm.
auditioning and leaving the city, coming back to the city, auditioning again, self-tapes, and, like, it kind of never ends.
Mhm.
Throughout the years of your career, through basically since that point, I would say since you booked that show up until the pandemic when everything shifted, what,
Mhm.
you know, I guess, is there anything that you can say was like, "Oh, I pivoted during these times because of this," or "I pivoted because, like, I wasn't getting the results I wanted," or like or an in either like an involuntary or voluntary pivot in these past, like, I don't know, 12 years?
Mhm. The first couple years I was very much like everything was going the way I wanted it to be, like
Mhm.
I felt like I was in great voice most of the time for most auditions, it was great, I was in dance classes, was trying to keep that skill somewhat up because I would from
Mhm.
time to time be cast as a dancer, which I thought was hilarious. But I was like, that
Yeah.
is not my life. But if you show that you have any ability, they will cast you that way if they need to. And that
Mhm.
happened to me a few times.
Yeah.
Um, and so there were a couple of pivots. So the first one was in 2010, I spent 6 months at the Barter Theater. And I
Mhm.
came in as a replacement. It was just supposed to be like a 3.5 month contract. And then they were like, hey, we'd
Okay.
love for you to stay for this other part of the contract that this person couldn't do for this other show and the other rep. I was like, sure.
Yeah.
And while I was there, I did one show with this woman, Katie Brown, who is now the
Mhm.
AD of the theater. And her attention to detail and
Mhm.
specificity was just like, it was like a whole new experience for me, especially doing
Yeah.
a musical. Because we've all been in those musicals where it's like the director, choreographer, no shade, they're all about stage pictures. That's all they care about.
Mhm.
There is
Mhm.
no character work, there is no table work. None of that is going on because they don't know that world and they don't care. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to make pictures and get the quick laugh.
Yeah.
And in this show, it was so detailed. And that was the first time that I had felt challenged as an actor.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I like this. And the Barter Theater had the Barter Players, which was like their intern company. So I would
Mhm.
just go downstairs and be like, hey, can I borrow some of your plays? And I would start, like, even though I had read all the classic plays from college or whatever, I
Yeah.
hadn't read a lot of the more recent stuff. So I was like,
Mhm.
can I just start borrowing your plays? And I started
Mhm.
reading, getting acquainted with like playwrights that I didn't really know much about, and then
Mhm.
loving them, falling in love with them. And then that led to me coming back and getting an acting coach so
Okay.
I could work on my monologues and work on all that sort of thing. So that was
Yeah.
the first shift. I mean, that was hard, obviously, because when your resume is just musical theater, it's very difficult to break into straight plays.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still, I was going at it. I would get the occasional callback. I was like, well, I have to try. So that was the first
Yeah.
one. And then a second one came, although it officially became a thing last year, but it's been
Mm-hmm.
kind of going for the last couple of years, was
Mm-hmm.
deciding to not do musical theater anymore.
Okay.
Because I want to say maybe around 2017, I
Mm-hmm.
started to have some like vocal issues. And it was
Okay.
frustrating because it wasn't one of those things where it was like, I'm going to the ENT, they're like, nodes, or you have reflux. I didn't have any of
Mm-hmm.
those things.
Mm.
And they were like, oh, it might be allergies. Like at that point, they don't know. So if there's
Yeah.
nothing showing up in your cords, I don't really know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually in so this was going on during 2017, which was also like my first full year being equity. So you're
Okay.
also dealing with the fact that even if you are having a great audition, you're now in the equity world. That was my first year going through the equity calls. So I was still very
Mm-hmm.
like bright eyed and bushy tailed. And then I was like, oh, half these calls are a waste of time. But, I didn't know that. I didn't know
Right.
that. So I was going in and sometimes killing it. But
Mm-hmm.
if the agent's appointments are the next day, you're probably not going to be on that list.
Yeah.
Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to say like the end of 2017, but also 2018 was probably when it was the worst. When I was like, I was singing through my book and I was like, I feel like I can barely sing any of these songs anymore. Like it was just this
Mm.
like weird raspiness, like when anything came to for belting, anything that was higher. Um, and then one of my friends, he was like, well, why don't you go see our other mutual friend's voice teacher, because she went to him when she had like no voice after touring a lot. It's like, okay. So I went to
Yeah.
see him, and I mean, he's incredibly expensive, but I went to see him and we sang through some stuff. And he's like, I don't think there was anything physically wrong with your voice. He's like, I think that you have, like you're over pressurizing, like too much breath. And that's causing this like crackly thing that you're, um,
Mm.
hearing, but it's like physically there's nothing actually wrong with you. So that on the first
Right.
lesson. And I was like, okay. And for a while I felt like I was making progress.
Mm-hmm.
And even during like the height of the pandemic, I was putting out tapes and I was like, yes, my voice is back. I'm singing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my car, squelching it out. Like I found that
Yes.
sweet spot. And then last year, started to have a couple of things in person. The first couple ones,
Mm-hmm.
great, still an excellent voice. But then it's
Mm-hmm.
like the other stuff started to kind of seep back in again. And it was
Mm.
like, I'm like, is the room just really dry? Am I really dry? Why can't I sing this stuff? It's not even that high. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, everything is like crackly and weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also done some more research about like the over pressurizing, which is basically
Yeah.
like it's basically muscle tension dysphonia,
Okay.
something like that. And there's like a deeply psychological element to that as well. Um,
Oh.
but so like it's probably the issue is probably at this point is like I think I'm not going to do it, like be able to sing the note. So now I can't, or I'm going to over pressurize and I can't find that balance and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just gotten to the point where I was like, why am I even still doing this?
Yeah.
Like I barely ever book musical theater work anyway. The last show I did was in 2019, and I didn't even audition for that. Somebody recommended me, and
Mm-hmm.
then they saw some of my clips, and I knew the show was an easy sing, so I wasn't like concerned about being able to do the show. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure, but I didn't actually audition.
Okay.
You know, so it was like for something I actually auditioned for, I hadn't booked a musical theater job since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So why was I like still out there trying to make this happen when it was
Right.
actually actively stressing me out?
Right.
Like when it came time for the audition day, waking up like, is it there? Or maybe feeling like it was fine. And then I would go to the audition. And then the moment I walk into the space, feel everything dry up. And it was
Oof.
like, yeah. Also, on
Mm-hmm.
that note, in 2020, like maybe about a month before everything got shut down, I had a terrible audition for a show. It's a show that you were up for as well because I saw you like
Mm-hmm.
that week for other things.
Okay.
And I was like, the show got canceled obviously because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But I was somebody had gotten me the audition. I was excited. I probably wasn't going to be the lead, but I know I could be the cover.
Yeah.
I was like ready. And I went in that room and it was just like the raspiness and dryness. It was all there. And I just remember like leaving Pearl. It was like, I put my sunglasses on. I was already crying behind the sunglasses.
Oh no.
I was like, oh, it was like the worst, the
Yeah.
actual worst. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So I was like, why would I keep doing that? And then that same week I booked like an equity showcase play. That was actually like a real, like official off Broadway thing.
Yeah.
I booked that the same week. So it was like, so I let myself cry that afternoon, started working on that audition, went in that next day or 2 days later, got called back and then booked it, found that I booked it that same week. I was like, what a crazy like time it was.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. So I can only imagine because I've had those days too of like, that was the worst audition of my life. I'm embarrassed. I don't want anybody to ever see me audition again. Like you put sunglasses on. I could imagine you too, just the sunglasses walking out of Pearl. If y'all don't know, Pearl is an audition studio in the city. Don't they have 2 locations now? I don't know.
I think I'm unclear if they still have the other location because it was going by another name at one point in the last year or so. So I'm not sure.
Anyway, an audition studio in the city, and I could see you because I know where that's at. I could see you walking out on 8th Ave, like boo-hooing, because I feel like a lot of us have had those moments.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And then you were like, wait a minute, I'm gonna pick up these pieces because I got another audition here to do that you then did book. And so my question to you then would be, in the time of like 2020, 2021, 2022, now 2023, you have made a pivot out of musical theater and into, straight plays, television, and sketch comedy, which we'll get to in a second. But like that decision of no longer pursuing musical theater, how did that feel? Like in your spirit, in your soul, in your mind, like something that you were like, no, I'm doing this. And then you had to be like, I'm not doing this.
Yes, that has been a hard transition, especially like now, like during this time of year when it's like it's audition season, and I'm not going to any of those calls because they're all for musicals. Like, I mean, I've always known there were less plays, but until you're actually only looking for plays, you're like, oh wow, I've been to one EPA the whole year. So it's been difficult. It's like every time you see somebody that you came up with booking like Broadway or a tour, you definitely have that pang of like, that was my trajectory. Had things worked out the way they were going in the beginning, and so there's always that part you're like, oh gosh, and it's not like hate. It's not, it's nothing like that. You're just like, you wish it was you, it's like, it's a simple thing, and now that I live in Hell's Kitchen, from time to time, if I'm cutting across town, we'll walk directly by theaters. And sometimes I'll walk by theaters of shows that I very much wanted to be in, where I was practicing the songs all the time and getting ready. And, you're like, well, that's not going to happen. You have like a moment of like a little sadness. Yeah, I mean, I think now I'm adjusting more. It is still fresh, though. Even though I made the decision in the fall, I would say, it's still kind of fresh, for sure.
That's fair. Understood. And you're working through it. Like we all kind of are in this time of transition of like, oh, can I continue this? Can I not continue this? Like, even if you wanted to, your body's like, no.
Exactly. No. And that's the big thing, because it's also like, it's a combination of the psychological element, the muscle tension, dysphonia, but there's also, as you get older, your voice can change. And how you produce sound changes. And that's a very real thing. And I know I'm not unique in that situation. People drag pop stars and R&B singers for not sounding the same, but I'm like, people's voices change. Like that is just what's going to happen. Some people are lucky and they're just beastly for 40, 50 years. But I'm like, even Patti LaBelle has a bad day or two. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, it can be very difficult to maintain like high levels of belting. And I never hurt myself. I was very lucky. I didn't have any vocal damage or anything like that. But I also knew my body was saying, we're not doing this anymore for whatever
Yeah.
reason. And I was
Yeah.
ignoring it. So why was I ignoring it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's fair. I understand. And so I am happy that you listen and you're like, you know what? My vocal cords are telling me something and maybe I should listen. Like, because I mean, all in all, in the end, as much as we both love this industry, it's not worth it.
It's not.
It's not. I'm not losing my voice for nobody. I'm not overstretching my hips. I'm not whatever it is
Yeah.
for this industry. It's not
For
worth it.
sure.
It's
For
not worth it.
sure.
So with that, with this newfound, like, okay, I'm going to pivot out of musical theater and see where it takes me. How did you get into comedy now, sketch comedy and improv and, you know, your TV stuff?
Yeah. So I'll start with the improv because that came first. So
Okay.
I started taking classes at the Magnet in 2017. And that was, once again, that was my first year being in equity. So, you know, I wound up going, at the time I didn't know this, but I wound up going, I think, almost 2 years without booking anything.
Okay.
So 2017 is when I started improv, went through like the first 3 levels, I think, in that first year. And I loved it. You know, I didn't expect to really love it. Like I had done like a little bit of improv, but to me it always kind of felt like those you know, like the goofy white kids in college doing weird stuff, like the comic guy, that's what they do. So I was like, I don't know what this is, but it was fun and it was a good release for me, especially when nothing else was happening. So I went through the levels. Right now I'm in conservatory improv, so I'm almost done with all my improv training. But I had the opportunity to join one of the Magnet's house sketch teams in the fall. So now I'm on one of the sketch comedy teams as a performer, and that's super fun because we do a show once a month, and we have our writers, and they write towards our strengths, you know, and like the sketches. I mean, I feel like my team has been very, very funny. We had very funny shows, so that's been fun.
Yes. Oh, I love that, and I also love that you were just like, I mean, this seems like for this group of people, but like, I'm gonna try it no way. Like, I'm a tall black woman. I don't know what I'm doing, but like, we finna do it. Like, I'm gonna try, and you ended up loving it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I've been like the last couple of years, I'm like, well, if something scares me, I probably should try it. You know, I mean, within reason, obviously, but I was like, if it's scary to me, I should probably try it. And I think it definitely helped my acting and helped me in life. It probably gets me in trouble in life sometimes. I'm just like saying whatever or making faces. So I'm like, whatever. And that also comes with age as well. Because now that I'm almost 42, I'm like, the level of fucks they're just not there anymore.
You're like, I'm not even gonna pretend to find one for you.
Yeah, I just don't care. Like, I'm not gonna like worry about other people's feelings when they're in the wrong or whatever. You know what I mean? Like all the things that you do when you're younger that you're worried about. I'm like, I'm not gonna worry about that. It was like, whatever.
Right. We're not gonna worry about that. Yeah. I understand that. And so, I love that. I love that you found, you're like, sketch comedy, improv. Yeah, this is my thing. I think I like this.
Yeah, it's super fun. I'm on an indie team, which is an all black improv team. We actually have a show tonight. Well, when it's recorded, but we do shows every once in a while. There's actually like there is like a little solid black improv community in the city. So we're actually going to be guest stars in another black improv team's show. Yeah. Which is cool.
Yes. That is really cool, actually. I didn't know that. Like, thank you for informing me. I'm gonna have to come see a show now. Like, I didn't know that. I don't know. I'm not really surprised because we always have our own thing going on. It's just that I didn't know. But it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Of course there would be a black improv community. Like, of course there would be.
Yeah. And also, I
Why
think that
not?
Black people are so naturally funny anyway.
We are.
Like just so funny.
Just come to a
Like,
family reunion. Just come to a family reunion. You'll be cracking up.
exactly. So it's a perfect fit, and it's great because like the last couple of years have obviously been hard. So it's like I've had this outlet to laugh.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that so
And
much.
as for the TV stuff, that was a long time coming.
Okay.
Um, I think I had my first co-star audition in like 2013 or something like that. But you get like, 2 or 3 a year if you were lucky.
Yeah.
Sometimes none.
Uh-huh.
And then
Yep.
during COVID, I started to get a little bit more. And I was finally getting like my technique down for how to approach those auditions and what I was going to do, blah, 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 blah. And I was sometimes being called in by the same casting people over and over and over again. So I was like, well, at least somebody in the casting office likes me.
Yeah.
At some point the producer will like me as well, and then it will happen. And that's basically what happened. So the first one was The Best Man,
Okay.
which was super exciting. I got to do my scene with Regina Hall, who was so
Yeah.
funny and so nice, and just it was cool, but it was also kind of stressful because it was my scene was at a school and there was a ton of background actors. So you're doing your big scene with like all these background people. So I mean, even though they're not watching you, they're watching.
Right. They watching you, but not watching you.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, but that was great. And I was like, yes, please more. I love this. I love being on set. I loved everything about it. And then in the fall, I got to do FBI Most Wanted.
Okay.
Which was like a whole nother thing because that's like a network procedural and those shows are machines. They knew exactly, like what they're doing. And, because one of the big things for me when it came to co-star auditions was like the tone of the show, basically. Like, even though I'd never seen FBI, I had seen enough clips of the show where I was like, okay, I know what this is. And this is a procedural. I'm just helping to, I'm just helping to tell the story more of what's going on. That's all my job is. So if I'm trying to be all fancy in this audition, they don't care. Like, you're just telling the story.
Oh, right. Oh, that's a good, yes. Like that's a golden nugget right there of like knowing the show that you're auditioning for. Like, oh, what is the, I don't say flavor. Yeah. What's the flavor of this show? Like, oh, you're like, oh, I know this. Yep. This is a machine and I'm just a cog that they're going to plug in and I'm helping them move the story along in this scene. Great. Continue. But not getting fancy in your audition.
Yeah. I think that sometimes people try to make a co-star audition more than it is, I mean, I had a few more lines in that one, but I've seen folks do the most for like 2 lines. I'm like, I don't know. Like, they just, you can make a choice depending on what it is, but usually they just want you to do what they want you, as they say, throw it away.
Yes. Fair. They want you to throw it away. Just throw it away. That's fine. But that's learning as well, I would say.
Oh, yeah,
I
for
would
sure.
say that's learning. Especially coming from musical theater.
For sure. Yes. I have to like fight the urge to be like really broad. And then of course I do the sketch stuff, which is all broad because nobody in sketch is a real person. So it's like everything is like very, I mean, unless you're playing like the voice of reason, but a lot of times, you're playing some wacky character and that's difficult as well because you're like, this is just all broad.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I first got into sketch, I was not being big enough because I was just like, this is, I was trying to play everything for like as real, which you can in your own way, but it still needs to be heightened.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. But now you have all of these skill sets to pull upon and the mediums that you now know, like, the musical theater, the improv, the TV. Where am I going today? Which one am I using? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes. And so
definitely hoping for more TV and more comedy in TV because I haven't really booked any comedic roles at all. Everything I've booked has been like very serious. And I'm like, that is not who I am whatsoever. So I would love to do one of those comedy things for sure.
Yeah. I could see on Abbott Elementary. I don't know why I just thought about that.
Oh,
This show's
I would love to.
hilarious.
It's so funny. I mean, if I was in, I mean, like, I have to redo my target list of shows
Yeah.
because they were all. I mean, some of those shows are no longer on the air, so I have to redo it. But if I was in LA, that would be the number
Mhm.
one target show
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So
No,
much fun.
that show's hilarious. I love it. Yep, I can see you
Mhm.
in that. Um, and so I guess my last question to you would be, what is a nugget of wisdom that you can share to others, like from the journey that you've had so far?
Mhm. Um, I would say keep an open mind, open heart,
Mhm.
but also be willing to add more skills on. You know, I
Mm.
feel like sometimes people they come to New York, they're like, I got my BFA. I mean, I don't personally have a BFA, but you know, I got my
Yeah.
BFA. I did all these things. I don't need to do anything ever again. But it's like, no, you probably can benefit from being in a class, whether it's
Yep.
like an on-camera class or just scene study, because you're just in audition grinds and you haven't actually had to really work on a text of a play in forever,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
or you know, let's try out improv, let's try out this random workshop, whatever, because I feel like people get very stuck, and which is great if you're booking, if that's working. But I feel like
Yeah.
if things are not necessarily happening, that's the time to try other things.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. I
Mhm.
love that. Yes, Rosalind, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for
Oh,
having me.
and sharing. I love it. So before I let you go,
Hmm.
2 things. One,
Hmm.
the first one, where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
So my Instagram is at the Roslyn Seale. So Roslyn Seale, first last name.
Mhm.
And then I also have a website, which is just roslynseale.com.
Amazing. That will all be in the show notes, so it's
All
gonna be
right.
easy to click on, all be in the show notes. And then I must say to you that I
Mhm.
acknowledge you, I celebrate you, and I uplift you.
Thank you. Right back at you.
You're welcome, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. I hope you have been informed and inspired by this week's episode. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes are out. To stay up to date and in the know about merchandise, exclusive content, and how to support the show, please subscribe to the newsletter at ayanabey.com/podcast. That's AYANABEY.com/podcast. And there's a link in the show notes. This show's executive producer is Ayana Major Bey, and editor is Kieran Niemand. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll speak to you soon.